Hi, this is Lorraine, and I'm doing another video. If you'll give me a second to clear, center, and balance my energy, we'll get started. Okay, well, this week, I can't say if there's been a bunch of messages because I can't remember, but yesterday, I've mentioned in the past, where I work, there's a lot of vets, and so, and we have a boat, and we took out that boat yesterday for the Seafair, which is equal to Fleet Week in the San Francisco Bay Area, which is where I was raised. And the Blue Angels fly, and they have stunt pilots come out and do some stuff too. It's actually really neat. So we took the boat out, and we were connected or parked on a log boom, they call it, in the middle of Lake Washington, and on our dive boat. And it was probably the best day I've had since I separated from my husband, probably since 2016. And so it was a wonderful day, and I got to hang out with really good people and my kids and have a really wonderful, wonderful afternoon, morning and afternoon. And but I'll put some videos in picture while I'm talking about this so you can see it. But it was really wonderful. The whole show was really wonderful from beginning to end, the whole day. But when the Blue Angels started flying, I was just in awe, and I was just like, wow, this is amazing. They're literally flying directly over our boat. They're within 50 feet of, the top of my head. Literally came directly over our boat on a number of occasions. And but in the beginning, I started tapping into someone's PTSD, and we have a lot of vets, so it might have been one of the vets on the boat, retired veterans, and we do have some men who are special forces, and we do have a variety of different backgrounds. And so I started living someone's experience, and I kept on hearing, they're all dead, they're all dead. And at first I thought it was my uncle, because when my uncle was in World War II, his whole, I don't know if they call it a platoon or a troop or I can't remember what they call a small group, but it was all the men that he was serving with at that time. All of them were killed except for him and his commanding officer, whose life he saved. But he was paralyzed from the chest down when they found him. They actually thought he was dead. So I heard this man saying, they're all dead, they're all dead. And all of a sudden he just starts running. And he's like, I gotta get back, I gotta get back. So I'm like, okay, it can't be my Uncle Dan, because he was paralyzed from the chest down. They thought he was dead. They actually put him in a body bag. And he wasn't the one who told me that he saved his commanding officer's life. My uncle told me that. My dad's brother. This is my great uncle I'm talking about. And because he would never say that. You know, there is no, you know, he would never acknowledge that, because this is what you do. You want everybody, you don't want anybody to die, so you'll do whatever you need to, right? Um, so he never talked to me about that. And when he talked about me about his wartime experiences, I never asked questions. I just let him talk, and I honored and I respected him, and I listened, and then I did whatever he wanted me to do. I helped him with whatever he wanted me to help him with, but it was never a two-way conversation. It was always very one way, and when he was done, then I would ask him, is there anything you need? Is there anything I can get you? And I'd sit with him, or I'd get him what he needed, or whatever. So, anyway, sorry, I kind of detracted a little bit. But, so I knew it wasn't my uncle, and so I see this man, and he's I can't feel, I don't see him because I'm living it. And so I'm looking through his eyes, and I can feel myself running, and it's not the Middle East. It is, it reminded me very much of Europe, so I'm thinking it's World War II. Definitely not Vietnam either, because there's trees and since I've been to Europe, but I remember from movies like Band of Brothers, or I watched The Big Red One, one of my favorites. Just the way they depict the land in the imagery in the movie, that's what I'm seeing, okay? And so he's running through these trees, and he's like, I gotta get back, I gotta let them know. And the feeling is he has to let them know there's something happening that our command isn't aware of, and so he needs to let people know before they get him, before they kill him, before they find him and kill him. And so I'm watching the show, and I'm trying to enjoy it, and then I'm like, all of a sudden I'm at the edge of my emotions, just like about ready to burst into tears. And I had sunglasses on, so I'm like sitting there trying to choke back, the tears, because I just want to just cry, because I can feel every emotion that he's moving through: fear, sadness, anxiety, trauma. Just like everybody's gone. Everybody's gone. I can just feel it. I gotta let somebody know, because if he doesn't, then more death. There'll be more death. And he's so focused on what he's doing and where he's going and what needs to be done. And he's on a mission, and he's not stopping. He's not going to stop until he gets to where he needs to be. And there's this discipline, I want to say, and this focus, and this the adrenaline. The adrenaline is intense, like what's moving him and what's driving him. And just there's no stopping. And so I'm going through this, and I'm on the roof of the boat with like a bunch of other people trying to choke back the tears, because I'm literally living this out in this moment while I'm trying to enjoy the show. And but so there's two things I'll say. One is like, this is what it's like to live. This experience I'm having is living between two different worlds, because I am literally living throughout what is happening to this man in this moment, and I'm feeling every emotion he's feeling. And with the exception of being out of breath from all the running and the physical exertion, like I am literally living through every emotion, every thought, and every experience that he's had that drives him so hard. Like, this is wisdom and experience coming through this man, because he knows what's going to happen if he doesn't get the information through the proper channels, to the proper people, and through the proper channels. So I'm sitting here watching a air show while simultaneously living out this person's trauma. And so what I had to do is I had to redirect my energy. I feel like in some ways it was a psychic attack. It was an energetic attack to redirect me from this very positive place I was in, because I was in so much bliss. I was so I told like half the boat what a wonderful day I was having. And I feel like part of it was trying to move me out of center. And so I had to find a way back to center. And so what I did is, and I've done this before, but I tapped into the love that these pilots have for what they're doing. So I redirected my energy. I redirected it away from the PTSD, and it could have been one of the men on our boat. It could have been one of the pilots, for all I know. And there were different. There's so many different vets at this event from all different branches. It could have been any person's energy, but I redirected it to this love that they have for flying, and this was a light day, right? They get to like show off their skills and play and have a little fun, and you know, just be in that moment, right? And so I just tapped into that love, and then I just redirected myself, and then I was able to enjoy the rest of the show. But this happened to me once before, and the idea came from the director of our school. So he's a former Navy SEAL and Vietnam vet, and commander of a ship, and he's got like this huge resume in the military, right? And so he came and he was speaking to all of us that work at school, and he said, and he starts talking about how they're gonna change the program, and they're gonna just adjust it a little bit because it's been the same since 1968, and so on and so forth. And so I'm watching him and I'm looking at him, and all of a sudden there's this white line that goes completely around his body. It's like an outline, and it's this white light, super bright, almost like a neon white light that's going around him. And he's talking, and I was so moved, I was almost moved to tears because I could feel how much he loved diving. I could just feel it. I mean, this diving brings him so much joy. I mean, he's in his element where he is right now as a retired former SEAL and commander and so on. Like, if you're going to retire into something, he's in the right place. And it was so moving. Like, I was in the back of the room almost in tears because I could feel how much he loved it, and it was so moving, that love he had, that when he was done, I went into his office and I told him, because they all know I'm a psychic, they all know I do readings, and so I went into his office and I said, I'm just going to tell you, like, when you started talking about the program and diving and so on, and how you were planning on changing it and the ideas, I could see the white light. I explained the visual I had, and then and I told him, I could feel the love. I could just feel the love, and then I started crying, and I said, just in case you were wondering where I was, like sitting in the back, kind of sobbing a little bit. I don't know if you noticed. But it's because I could feel the love. I mean, like, I could just feel the love. So much love for what he was doing. So much love. And while I was talking to him, he just had this little grin. He's 70 years old, and he had this little grin on his face. And he's like, yeah, I do love diving. I mean, he was like a child. He just had this childlike smile on his face. Like, he just went all the way back, and he was just like living through his life. And so I just remembered that conversation that I'd had with him, and when I was experiencing that PTSD moment, and I'm watching the pilots, I just started tapping into that love that they have for what they're doing, and just like shifted my energy back to center. So I guess I'm telling you the story for a couple reasons, because it was a pretty neat day and I had so much fun, but also, as we open up spiritually and energetically to the world and the universe around us, and we're tempted and we're pushed out of center, we learn certain skills, intuitively, through experience, through instruction of someone talking about it, like me in this moment. If you're listening, I just gave you a tool that you can use when you moved out of center to find a way back to center. So that's probably why I'm talking about it more so than anything. what I've done, my experiences, and how I utilize those experiences to help me in my journey on my path and purpose, and how the tools I find and use and build on throughout this life, throughout this my path and purpose, to help me on my path and purpose to maintain center. Okay, so so from that place, I need to you know, there are some things that I need to think and kind of allow the energy to flow and move through. And I really didn't, I was hoping I wouldn't be asked to talk about this, only because it's a trigger, I think, for our society today, but it's something that needs to be said from my experience. And I've said it before, and in a video a long time ago, I don't even know which video it is, but you know, I was raised in the San Francisco Bay Area. I went to a Catholic high school in Oakland, in East Oakland, in not the greatest, pretty rough area. And I was raised in a very blue-collar community, not in Oakland, but very rough. It had pockets of pretty rough areas, violence, gang violence, and stuff like that. A little different than Oakland, but I'm not going to get into the dynamics of that. And 3 of my 4 closest friends that I've known continuously from the time I was about 12 years old are Black, and people I love, and I consider part of my family. We go to each other's weddings, birthdays, funerals, whatever, right? We just have an incredible amount of love for each other. They're part of my family. And so I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. You know, I feel like there is an intentional agenda being played out to victimize the Black community, to make them feel like, as a whole, as victims. And a few weeks ago, I was in one of the wealthier areas of the greater Seattle area, an area called Redmond, one of the wealthier areas. And we went into a Costco, and I noticed almost everybody in there was Indian from India, which I don't have an issue. This isn't about race per se, but they're all shopping and living in one of the more wealthy areas in this part of Washington State, Seattle, the greater Seattle area. And I'm like, there were no Black people, okay? Black folks, they were all outsourced. So in the early 90s, we had this thing about outsourcing, and they're like, oh, we don't have enough skilled labor, so we're going to bring it in from India, okay? So now we have all these Indians from India living in one of the wealthiest areas in this Seattle area, and all the Black folks are still living in the ghettos, or living in poverty, or living on the streets. And we have these organizations talking about Black Lives Matter and so on. I sorry, but I believe all lives matter. I believe Black lives are part of that, and they also matter, okay? But my point being is that why are Black people still struggling, and we're bringing in all these people from different countries to work in this country when we have a labor force capable of doing the work, or in the last 30 years who could have been trained to work in the labor force, who could have been empowered to work in computers. 30 years ago, kids that were born, if you were born 30 years ago, you'd be 30 years old today, and you'd be fully capable of, not only, if you were trained properly, empowered, you could be trained to work in the computer industry, okay? There's no reason why we should have a whole community of people, of that were not born and raised in this country, working and making the highest income, living in the wealthiest neighborhoods, when the black community is still struggling, okay, as a whole. And people would say, well, you made a choice, they make choices. So let me just say this. If our government had put as much effort into empowering black communities as they did into protecting us from an illness, if they would have put as much effort into empowering the black communities as they put into critical race theory, okay, if they would have put even a fraction, look what they did in like less than a year with critical race theory and pushing that agenda in our schools, with equality in our schools. Look how much turmoil and segregation, anger and bitterness, how they've split up the communities, just in that effort to push this agenda. If they had put just 50% of that same energy into empowering a community, helping them have the tools that they need for self-empowerment, just telling them they had value, just telling them they could do anything they want to do with the support or with the skills, and then providing opportunities through the public school system. When I was in public school, we did not buy our school supplies. We didn't buy our pencils, we didn't buy our pens, we didn't buy our glue, we didn't buy our art kits, we didn't buy any of that. It was all provided by the school district. We came to school. We brought our person to school. That's it. If our parents made us a lunch, then we brought our lunch to school. Otherwise, we got lunch at school. But we did not. Nowadays, they're like, we need you to. Our schools don't have money. We need you to bring your school supplies. You need to buy your own school supplies. You need to buy your own backpacks. You need to buy. Why is that the case? I don't understand. I'm completely baffled by this. I'm literally completely baffled by this. Why do we have the money to push these political agendas, but we don't have the money to empower a community? And I'm talking back 30 years ago. I'm not even talking about today. I'm talking about 30 years ago, because there's an agenda being played out to disempower a community. And I will tell you from my personal experience, when I was growing up, black folks have more talent, more gift, more genius, as far as in everything, though. In everything. I know that they dominate music in many ways. I know that religious preachers, incredibly gifted. Martin Luther King, off the charts, okay? Off the charts. But it's not just that. This is a powerful people. These are a powerful people. They are so deeply rooted in their passion. And I know they get a bad rap for being emotional. You see a lot of, when I was younger, Jerry Springer, you have black folks in there getting all emotional over their baby's dad and their boyfriend's cheating on them or whatever. It was all the drama, okay? They pushed this drama of people who are emotionally out of control and they're problematic. I mean, they pushed it. They pushed it to make people look like they're less than they are. The black community. That's what I feel, and I'm not saying this to be critical. I'm saying this because I know that these are the most powerful people, probably race on the planet, because of their passion and their heart and their faith. Nobody can move. There is no speakers, in my opinion, that I have ever witnessed and heard speak. There is nobody I've ever heard who can influence people the way Martin Luther King did. There is nobody who could speak with passion, with wisdom, with knowledge, with power. Nobody in my experience. I'm 55 years old. I have never in my life heard anybody speak like he did. And he passed away. He died when I think I was born, or maybe I was a year old. But I've heard his speeches. And I've read his speeches, and I've watched his speeches on video, and they are powerful. They couldn't let him live. They couldn't let him live. He would change the world. And that's passion in his heart, in his soul. That's what he believed, and he could speak in a way that moved mountains. He moved mountains. He drove all communities, not just the Black community, all communities loved and believed and trusted in his words. And this doesn't go to anything in his personal life. You can criticize his personal life, but he created change on a level in our, not only in our communities, but in our country. In our country, that no politician, no musician, no actor could do. Okay, they didn't do it. And no politician, no actor, no musician has done since. Okay, these are a powerful people. The Black community are powerful. They must be kept down. They cannot be empowered, because if they were empowered, they'd take over, because of their intelligence, because of their heart, the passion that they put in everything, whatever it is, the passion that they put in everything, their candid nature, their articulate, the way they speak. They can't allow these people to be empowered. They could have over and over and over again built these people up, built up the Black community, but they didn't. They found different ways to make them feel like victims and drive that and create discord, create separation, create anger, bitterness, fear. And they do it over and over again. They've done it over and over again. Okay? And that came to me like weeks ago, and I'm like, I just hope I don't have to talk about it, because it's a hot button issue. I get it. It's a trigger for a lot of people. I get it. But I know from my personal experience, the people I know in my life that I love in my heart, who I call family, these aren't victims. These aren't ignorant people. These are brilliant, courageous, intelligent individuals who love their family, they love each other, they love me, they love their communities, and they fight for their families. They're very capable. They're very competent. And when I see people try to marginalize the Black community and say, I'm so sorry that society has treated you this way. Well, society has treated a lot of different people poorly. Okay? You cannot call a white person privileged just for being white, the same way you cannot call a Black person a criminal just for being Black. It's wrong on every level. We're moving out of this. We're moving out of this. But maybe I'm being asked to speak about this so people can start to see this from a different perspective and not from the paradigms that are being presented. I'm not sure, but I know that you cannot call a white person privileged for being white. I had a roommate when I was living in Tennessee who was living in an orphanage for a very long time and was literally raped as a 2-year-old. Literally raped sexually, not oral sex, and had so much scarring in her body she could never have children again. And you cannot say that that person is privileged just because they're white, because the trauma that she experienced and what it's done to her in her life is sad. And I will go back. You cannot call a white person privileged just because they're white, the same way you cannot call a Black person a victim, a criminal, just because they're Black. Those are sweeping generalizations that are not true across the board. They are untrue. And so On my social media, I'll say, it says, I'm a voice for those who don't have a voice, or for those who are afraid to make their voices heard. And I take a lot of flack for that, and from my ex-husband, from people around me, but I'm driven. I know what's right. I know what's wrong. I know what the problems are. I can feel it in my body. I know it. I feel it. I have visions about it. And those determinations of what is right and wrong, what constitutes good and what constitutes bad, what constitutes acceptable and unacceptable, has been so bastardized and manipulated that people have become lost in all the propaganda, and they've just started to follow what they're being told because they've committed to paradigms, right, of what they believe to be right or wrong, or so they've committed to a political or a conservative agenda, right, of being what that political affiliation considers to be right or good or wrong or bad on either side. And then they commit to that and they follow those agendas blindly, okay, because they associate with this liberal or this conservative agenda. There's good and bad on both sides. I'm not taking any sides. I'm not taking any sides. I can see what's right and wrong, and I support what's good and kind and considers the greater good of all people, not any one group. How do we drive forward what's best for the greater good of the whole of the planet, not even just the United States of America, but the whole of the planet? I support that. I don't support any political agendas. I don't support any particular beliefs or paradigms or religions. I support the divine source energy, the will of the divine, the desire of Mother Earth, the goal of transcendence, and the shift into balance. That's it. All these other things that I've been talking about are detractions, are a way to scatter and separate and try to prevent that from happening. Okay? So when I bring up these things and I talk about them, these are tools of discernment. Okay, the way people are falling, when I say the decision has been made, there's some folks that will incarnate on Cepheus, in the Cepheus constellation. There are others who will transcend with Mother Earth and be part of this transcendence and transition of the universe as a whole. The information I discussed in the beginning of this video is part of the tools of discernment that the divine source energy utilizes as it moves the energy, as we move the energy as part of this divine source energy, as we move this energy and create these new realities, okay, create these new worlds, create the new reality here on Earth. All these events that are happening, everything I've discussed, are all part of the tools that are used to provide the information to determine the shifting of the energy. Like attracts like. What you put out is what you get back. If you're putting out anger, separation, bitterness, the negative, if you're following political agendas, paradigms, so whatever that is, you are manifesting 3D reality in the Cepheus constellation. If you're looking at this from a higher perspective, from love, compassion, kindness, if you're looking at it from how do we create a holistic and balanced reality from a place of love and light, where we honor one another, where we honor the divine, where we honor our connection to one another and the divine, how do we move this world into balance? If you commit to the greater good, if you commit to the divine, if you commit to one another, if you commit to Mother Earth, Father, Son, and the universe as a whole, and you work towards transitioning to a new perspective, an elevated perspective, a divine perspective, a divine love perspective, you commit to this new earth. Okay? And people don't have to be perfect, sorry. People don't have to be perfect. I know so many people who drive from their heart, who are always trying to do the best thing they can. They're always looking out for the people around them, trying to create a better reality for us all. And especially where I work, there's a couple people who think of the whole community of our company, of our school. They're thinking about everybody. They're not just thinking of themselves. And they're always trying to do the best for everybody. They may not be psychic. They may not meditate. They may not do things the way they do, the way I do it. But they are manifesting beauty from a place of balance, from a place of goodness and kindness for the greater good. So even through their subconscious, they are manifesting New Earth. Okay? So not everybody has to be at the same place that I'm at and other people like me to manifest New Earth. Just because you're not meditating, just because you don't have crystals in your apartment, just because you don't subscribe to the same spirituality as I do, the same version of spirituality as I do, doesn't mean that you're manifesting the world, the 3D world that you'll be living in Cepheus. It just means you have a different perspective and you're at a different place in your spiritual growth. Like I said in the past, some people have to be on the cusp. They have to be at the beginning of this spiritual transition to help guide others through it. And I'm one of many people who are put in a place to be on the cusp of that transition, who are spiritually awakened, open, very psychic, very telepathic, very connected to the divine, to the higher self, to energy, all energy. People like me who don't discern between my energy, the energy of the plants around me, the soil, anything. I don't discern the differences other than we vibrate at a different level and we have a different purpose on this world. Okay? But that doesn't mean I don't value that energy and what it brings to the world and my life. Okay? Whatever it is. Whether it's my shoes, okay? Or my stones, or my kids, or my friends, right? My good friends. I don't discern. I see who they are, what they bring to my life, and what it's meant to mean for me, and how to value that. Okay? How to value it when it's here. How to take advantage of those moments when it's here. And when to know when it's time to let go of some of that energy, right? And release it. And to allow it to transmute into something else and become something different. And maybe it'll have value for someone else. But I know when things come into my life to appreciate those moments, to value it, and try to maximize those experiences for the greater good of everyone. For me, for my kids, for everyone around me, but not only everyone, everything. Okay? How do I maximize every experience for everyone and everything? That's where we're moving. That's where part of transcendence. And there's so many levels to transcendence. There's so many, but this is one. Or two, maybe three or four. I'll figure it out when I rewatch the video. And so I just when I'm in the water, when I'm submerged in water, I have so much information that comes through. It totally clears my energy field. I had gladiola and many beings in the water. I could feel them underneath me. Even though they didn't physically present themselves, I could feel them deep under the water, present, moving energy up through me. And I had a lot of telepathic communications coming in from sources that are paramount and pivotal in transitioning the world, but within the United States as a whole. So there's a lot of stuff going on that we, as citizens of the United States, walking the streets, aren't aware of. There's so much stuff going on behind the scenes, and so I had telepathic communications coming in when I was in the water, and there was a lot of expression of gratitude back and forth. And so while I was in the water, and so I'm having the visions again, so I'm just going to share them because that's what I do. I was blessing the earth, and what I had done was I created vortexes in the water, and I created the Fibonacci spiral and the 0 point. So you'll see and I'm sure I have a visual somewhere I'll put in the video, but there's a cone shape, the Fibonacci mathematical numeric sequence creates a funnel going up, and then it also creates a funnel going down, and then in the middle is 0 point. And so we have as above, so below. Okay. And I created a vortex when I was in the water, and what it did was it was clearing the planet. And I do this all the time. I'm always clearing the earth and putting protective fields up, but like at least 2 or 3 times a day. But in this case, it was a different type of expelling, because most of the energy, the negative energy, has been removed from the planet. And so I just was in the water, and I made a commitment as I was clearing it, as above, so below, removing this, I guess maybe the last remnants. I had been getting waves of PTSD throughout the day, but it wasn't as bad as when the Blue Angels had come through. But there were 2 military, I think it was Army, I don't know the equipment, but maybe it was Air Force, I'm not sure, helicopters. They were doing movements, maneuvers, like tandem. I could hear the blades shifting and changing, and whenever they moved and did a different maneuver, I can hear there was a change, a shift. And I have a friend who I had a vision of about a couple years ago, and I don't really talk about it, but I don't really have a lot of visions of his military experiences, but I do feel it. I feel the emotions. But I had one vision of him, and I say he was all geared up. I don't know what that means, but specifically, but I know he had all his gear on, and he was in a helicopter, and I know I could see his hat, helmet, whatever, right above his brow, and I could see his face, but I could only see his eyes. I could feel his face, I could feel the space around him, but I could only see his eyes. And I've seen his eyes look like that once before, and I knew exactly where he was at. I know he was going out to do something. So he kind of put himself in the zone. And so when those helicopters started circling, I could hear the blades. The one thing, when I had that vision the first time, I could hear the blades first. That was the first thing that came in. I could hear the blades. So I feel like those helicopters that were circling were the helicopters that flew him out, wherever he was going. And then I saw his eyes. And then I realized what the vision was. Because a lot of times I'll get a piece of the vision, and then 2 or 3 months later I'll get another piece of the vision, and then it could take me a year and a half to get the full vision to understand what I'm seeing. So while these helicopters were flying, I started having that vision again, and even though I don't know what he went out to, I started getting the anxiety of not knowing. The PTSD of going out, coming back, and having gaps in your memory and not being able to remember the whole thing, but knowing you survived. I just started feeling that trauma, because like I said, I don't see the experiences, I don't move through the experiences, I just feel the emotional consequences of those experiences. So while those helicopters were flying, and I was in the water, I didn't get any pictures of him, but because I was in the water, but I just went in and I committed, and I started clearing the planet again. As above, so below. There will never be war on this world as there have been in the past. Okay, sorry. I just made the commitment that there would not be war on this world. There would not be the manipulation on this world that there has been in the past. And I just started creating that Fibonacci spiral. As above, so below. Like attracts like. Love, compassion, kindness, acceptance, balance, change, transition to the most beautiful place possible. I committed to that. I recommitted to that, whatever it takes. And I just was in the water, just creating this vortex of energy, this field from the center, from the 0 point, from the beginning, from the source. Acknowledging the power, the gift that can be tapped into from this place of balance, from sincerity, from goodness, from the desire to create a beautiful existence for all, not for just some, for all. If you can come to that place, tap into that energy from a place of sincerity, from commitment, and unlock the keys and the codes. There are so many events that happen in our life that are truly their locks that we need to open. They're codes that we need to learn to read. They're keys we need to find to open locks. Okay? And once we maneuver through that and we show that we have rediscovered our divine roots, that birth that erased all those memories from our past and of our divine roots, that now at this place that we have reconnected with those divine roots, when we show that, we can access that divine source energy and create the change that's necessary on this world. And not everybody needs to access it, but when those who have are who are creating new earth, and there's nothing anybody else can do to stop it. There's nothing, this energy that's trying to usurp the divine, that's trying to, who covets this world and wants to control and possess it through separation, through oppression. There's nothing that energy can do to usurp the will of unity, because it's part of unity, okay? And that divine energy that embodies both positive and negative, okay? Both black and white, okay? Both left and right. It embodies both in unity. And those things, black and white, left and right, light and dark, don't exist in unity, okay? They don't exist in unity. When you can access that unification energy and work from that place of unity, then you create from the purest place, from the source energy, and nothing can usurp that. And that's what separation doesn't understand. The idea of separation. The idea of separation, me separate from you. I can do this, you can't. Okay? That's what separation is. But true unification acknowledges the necessity of all things and then creates from that place of unity. Okay, does that make sense? It seems a little bit difficult if you don't understand or having difficulty reconciling that left and right, light and dark, positive and negative don't exist in unity. They're part of unity, but they don't exist in separation within unity. They're just components, they're tools used to create. Okay, they don't have a good or bad charge or a positive or negative charge. They just exist within unity. When you separate these ideas, then you assign positive and negative, good and bad. Okay, and you start labeling and separating and creating from that place of separation, and then it becomes distorted because there's no understanding of how the two pieces work together. That they're not truly separate, they are unified and work as a unifying force. Okay, but when you create from unity and this understanding of unification, that is when you truly create from source energy, and you create from your true divine roots, your true divine self. Okay, I feel like that's going to be it, but let me just, it's a good place to stop, but let me just clear my energy again and see what comes. And so I'll just say, when I was created the vortex in the water, and as above so below, and I started committing to creating change and there never being war like we've known on this world again, it was noted to me that I didn't mention that Gladiola and her people, even though they were in the water with me, that I called on them to help kind of project, empower, strengthen that energy and that commitment. And so they kind of, the people together with me, created the commitment. So that is a unification of ideologies and beliefs and paradigms between another being on our world. Okay, so I created a let's say a contract, a contract, a treaty. It's not even a treaty. It's not a treaty. It's a contract. We agreed together in that moment to create change on this world for peace, love, compassion, kindness. Okay, that was our agreement. And so the energies that are transcending to New Earth. Okay, so that tells me what she just said, Gladiola just implied to me, is that this is the first step in diplomatic relations with other beings that we are unaware of, that most of humanity is unaware of, that exist on this planet. The raptors are the others. And there's many beings in the water. There's many beings in the water, but this is the first of many engagements, interactions to build diplomatic relations with other beings that live on this world who are not human as we know it. Okay? Okay, that's it. Thank you.